What's up guys, what's up traders? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're talking about GbpUsd, a trade I took last week, a trade I held for 2 days, and a trade that ended up being my biggest winner ever as far as how far it traveled in pips. So we're gonna talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and where I found confidence to hold this trade for 2 days. So if you're new to the family, if you're new to the team, hit the red button below me, join us. Make sure you're subscribed, that way you don't miss any of my future trading content. Give the video a big thumbs up for me because it helps the algorithms, and let's get into the breakdown of the trade. All right, guys, so let's get into the breakdown of the trade. First, you see in front of you the live trade photo on the right side and the P&L above my head here. You can see from the P&L that I had 3 different exits with the same entry price. So no, before you even comment, that was not 3 separate entries. It was 1 entry with 3 separate exits. My worst exit was closed at 327 pips. My best exit was closed almost 100 pips higher than that at 423 pips. If you look over at the live trade, you can see my buy price was way down here, this black dotted line. And as you can see, after basically the first day, because we were so far up into profit, I moved the stop loss up. And then into the next day here, when I took the photo, I moved the stop loss even higher. By doing that, I was guaranteeing that if it did for some reason spike back down, just as it had spiked up with such velocity, if it had done it back down, I would have made sure that I was stopped out of the trade in profit, not for a loss. So by moving my stop loss higher when I'm buying and I'm in profit, then I'm covering the trade, protecting it so that I can't lose any money. That's why I do that. That's what my system calls for. So if we take it to TradingView, you can see I have the entry over here marked up, right? It was about 3 in the morning. I was actually in bed, just couldn't sleep. We were on vacation and I was up. People in the VIP chat were talking and I liked the idea that they were looking at this to go higher. I liked it though on the higher time frames, we're gonna get into that in a second, to even hold this for 2 days. And that's where the confidence for the hold came from. But I wanna show you where I really agreed with them, where I think we were all seeing the potential for this to reverse. If you look at GbpUsd in the days previous, we're looking at a 30-minute chart here, you would think that we're in a downtrend. It broke to the downside earlier in the week. It set the low for the week here on Tuesday. Wednesday, it tested that low and couldn't really break. It does briefly with price on this time frame, but it can't really break the zone that was set here. And then as you can see, it reverses out and moves higher, way higher than it was as the week goes on. So how did we know that it could potentially reverse? Well, if we pull up the TDI, which is the RSI on the bottom with 2 moving averages, you guys know I use this thing in all of my analysis, you can actually see that we became divergent on the bottom here. Now, this is a signal that we use for entries in our advanced system. The divergence on the bottom can be found really easily, honestly. You take the RSI low here, set on Tuesday, and match it with the price action low set here at 3 a.m. on Wednesday. Now, by doing that, what you create is a rising trend line here on the RSI and a falling trend line here on price action. You see how price is falling? That is divergence. Now, I have maybe 3 other videos on the channel that you should go watch about divergence if you don't fully understand this. But when you have divergence presenting, the idea is price action is lying to you and the RSI, the TDI here, is telling you the truth. So the fact that the RSI is rising tells us that this price action kind of chopping sideways a little bit lower, but not really, kind of moving sideways, that price action is kind of lying to us, getting ready almost to potentially reverse. Now, you can use divergence to find trades in trends. Say you find the divergence here off the 50 EMA to come lower, and that I think are super solid entry signals. These counter trend trades, they can be tricky, so they sometimes require more patience. So that's the first piece that went into me having confidence to hold this thing, is that I knew I needed to have a lot of patience with the trade. Now, where we liked it for entry, why we waited till the next day, was because if we draw a zone, and again, there's a few videos on my channel that show you how I draw my zones, here at the bottom, set on Tuesday. Price action is clearly having an issue with 121.96, 121.99, 122 almost basically, is that round-ish number that it's having an issue breaking lower. The fact that the RSI continued to rise, pull the liquid 50 higher, pull the RSI into the buy zone, that then really got me interested to see this thing move up. Now, the entry signal itself came once we were above the 50 EMA. Knowing that we had broken above the 50, I was confident that we were either going to full reverse to the 800 EMA here, or it would come down, break this zone set back on Tuesday, the zone that was tested on Wednesday, and then it would move lower. So if it broke this zone, I wouldn't want the trade long anyway. I'd want to be out of it, maybe even go short if it presented the right way. But in this situation, I'm using the zone on the bottom with the divergence to tell me where to put the stop. That helps me judge the risk. So here, the stop was about, let's round up just to be generous here, about 40 pips, because I had it at the bottom of this zone. Here it's 38 pips. But with my spread, and I just gave it about 40 pips of a stop. The reason why I was okay with the 40 pip stop is if we measure from the entry price where I knew I was entering at 122.35 up to the 800, it's 76, 77 pips. 3 pips away from being 2-to-1 risk reward with a 40 pip stop loss. So do you see how I just calculated that risk reward? I measured where the stop would be, and then I did 2 times that number to come up with the 2-to-1 potential idea. And it worked out great that the math put me right at the 800 EMA, which is where I wanted to take it. So that was the idea behind the entry. Now, what ended up happening was news came out right here that the potential for a deal between Boris Johnson and the other members of the European Union to come to some type of an agreement before October 31st, in about 2 weeks or so, is looking likely. As you can see here, Johnson agreed, could see a pathway to a possible deal. That was the breaking news. Forex Factory classified this as high impact breaking news, right at 10:15. It wasn't scheduled, but because it was good news for this potential Brexit deal, all the pound pairs took off higher. So they start shooting up. It starts to pick up a lot of velocity. And that's where it took out one of my take profits. But the way that I have my take profits set is that I still have a piece of the trade on even as that piece gets closed. That's why you see multiple exits in all of my trades. Now, where this thing just really picked up steam was overnight into the next day. Overall, from my original entry, the highest it had gone was 470 pips, 469 pips. My best position, I pulled 423. I was out right here the next day around 7 a.m. in this pin. I just was very, very happy with the win. I didn't want to hold it into the next day anymore. I was pretty content with 2 days of rise. A 400 pip winner, I just was very, very happy with it, and it was very overbought, as you can see here. So you understand the entry now, you see the divergence, you see the zone on the bottom, you see the break of the 50, which was indicating to me that we could move higher. A couple things to keep in mind here is the fact that news drove this thing higher. Had news come out and been bad, it could have spiked this thing down and ruined the trade, right? And stopped me out. And we'd be talking about a loser here. But because news worked out in my favor, the trade ends up moving higher and ends up actually going to be my biggest winner ever. News trading on its own is very risky in my opinion, but when you have high impact breaking news like this, we can't forecast that. We don't know that that's happening, right? So you can't account for that in your trading. All you can do is take good technical setups like this, patterns that repeat. And Drew, one of the guys, you guys hear me talk about him all the time, he's been with me for a long time and he's got that interview up on the channel as well. He pointed out on our Black Shirt call on Sunday, yesterday, he was like, news seems to be moving these things in the direction that we know more often than not. And I told him that's because the indicators that we use are really, really good at reading market sentiment. They're really, really good at knowing where the big money, the smart money is before it actually starts moving. So this GbpUsd trade, if I pull this back up, as you can see, ended up being one of my biggest trades ever, even as far as money and as far as distance and pips. So I'm actually having Riley frame this up and we're going to put it right up there on the wall so you guys can see it in all the videos. But this trade itself on a technical setup basis was clean. The news helped, and then into the next day, the news took it even higher. So there really isn't much you can ask for as far as a better trade. What can we do to make sure that we repeat this? Like I said at the beginning of the video, what can we do to see this happen over and over again? All we can do is just continue to take really good setups like this one that fit the same pattern. And more often than not, we'll find that news ends up taking us in the direction that we were trading, in this case, that we were long, it ends up taking us long. So sticking with good technicals and avoiding the scheduled high impact events. For example, if this event that ended up, the event that ended up shooting it higher here, if this was not breaking news, if this had been 10:15 scheduled news for some speech or something like that, we might have closed the trade before the news came out and we would have missed this whole rip. But because it was breaking news, we can't account for it, so we're not going to react to it in the moment. As soon as it breaks, we don't just pull the trade. At that point, you're in it to win it. You let it rip, and here it breaks those key levels and continues to move higher, even to the point where it's using, you can see the high set here as the bottom for the breakout the next day. Just very clean technical structure, almost as if it was manipulated to just be driven up for 2 days, because then as the, really as the day has progressed today, it's moved down off that high as the week has started. So we'll see if it's got some more gas to keep moving higher. I think if you get more positive Brexit news, it's going to continue higher. But for this trade, I want you to understand the divergence. I want you to understand the box, the zone at the bottom that we were using as the bottom, and understand that, look, it was measure good risk. Can I get good reward? Can I get 2 to 1, 3 to 1? Okay, I'm taking the trade. And you just shut up and let it do its thing. And more often than not, when you have a repeatable system like this, the trades end up working out in your favor. So I hope the live trade here taught you something. I hope the recap taught you something, maybe makes you think a little bit differently about patience, maybe a little bit differently about how to use divergence. Maybe if you're not even using divergence, you should be, because it can help you. If it helps you in any way, guys, drop a comment below, please. Let me know how it helps you. Let me know if anything I said in the video here is unclear. And if you want more clarity on this entry system, plus the other ones that we're using every single day, get in contact with me. My info is below. My website is below. Everything that you need is down in the description. So just check that out, and I'm always here to answer questions. As always, guys, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next trading video.